Everyone, welcome to the Office of Undergraduate Research Education Series. Today's session is Career Pathways, Politics and Government. This is actually a hybrid event. As you will know, you're already here, and we do have some virtual participants. It's being recorded, so it'll be available next week sometime. We ask all the virtual participants to mute themselves and to turn off your camera so you'll have the best experience. And all our virtual attendees, please put your questions in the chat feature and I will share it with the panelists. And I wanted to remind everybody that the mission of the Office of Undergraduate Research is to facilitate and promote undergraduate, student, faculty, collaborative research and creative works in all disciplines throughout the University of Utah campus. In recognition that excellence requires diversity, we pursue this mission through equitable programming that promotes diverse representation and social justice. And I'd like to acknowledge that this land, which is named for the Ute tribe, is the traditional and ancestral homeland of the Shoshone, Paiute, Goshute, and Ute tribes. The University of Utah recognizes and respects the enduring relationship that exists between many indigenous peoples and their traditional homelands. We respect the sovereign relationship between tribes, states, and the federal government, and we affirm the University of Utah's commitment to a partnership with Native nations and urban Indian communities through research, education, and community outreach events.
My name is Carmen Gold-Johnson. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am one of the associate directors in the UOU Career Success Center. So I am excited to be here and step in. Some of our panelists are still on their way, but we wanted to at least, be mindful of folks' time and get things started. But I will move to the next screen to share with you the folks that are going to be with us today. We have Nate, who is a Utah Senator, Rosalba, thank you, I appreciate it, which is a Murray City Councilwoman, Nicoletta, and she's on Versatile Images and the Governors of Economic Opportunity. And then we have with us today, so far, and we'll have Kathryn be able to jump right in with us today as the Executive Director of People Helping People. So we're excited to have you here. Thank you. Like I said, Kathryn, we're going to jump in with you and I chatting, kind of having this one-on-one. And Nate too, come on in, yeah. The first question really is, just to kick us off, is can you share an instance where research has been vital in crafting a successful initiative or policy within your respective fields? So before that too, I'd love to maybe just share a little bit about like who you are and what your organization is and what you do, and then dive into that question too.
Great. So my name is Kathryn Thomas, and I'm the Executive Director of People Helping People. We are a local nonprofit celebrating 30 years this year. And our mission is to work primarily with low-income women, most of which are single mothers, helping them build confidence in the support system and learn how to work successfully so that they can reach self-sufficiency. So from the nonprofit perspective is going to be a lot of my direction today, my answers today.
I'm Nate Blouin. I am relatively new still to the state Senate. So I was elected last year. I represent District 13, which is not quite this area, but Sugar House, South Salt Lake, a little bit of West Valley, and a good chunk of Mill Creek and Murray. I'm really focused on environmental issues. My background is actually previously working in the renewable energy space. So I've been really focused on the Great Salt Lake and what's going on there, and also our energy grid. There's a lot of changes happening there, and Utah's got a lot of work to do. So trying to find ways to adapt and hopefully keep the state moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm Rosalba Dominguez, Councilwoman Dominguez of Murray City. And so we deal a little bit more. I'm District 3, so I'm kind of comprised in the downtown area to the south side of the park, all the way up to Holiday border, and then all the way a little bit past 4500 south. So it's a big chunk. We deal with a lot of, it's where the pavement hits the road and what happens in your city. So I field a lot of policy questions regarding streets and we have our own municipality, our own power municipal grid as well. And so environmental issues are very important to me, but also just meeting constituents where they're at and making sure that their voices are being heard is a big passion of mine, because we kind of went 12 years with somebody who was unopposed and nobody knew who he was. And there was a lot of issues going on that was affecting our district specifically, and in terms of development and what that looked like. So I've really learned a lot about land use and development and what that means and what your cities can do and who it affects directly.
Yes, wonderful, thank you. Okay, yeah, so I'll repeat that very first question again, and this is for all the panelists here. Can you share an instance where research has been vital in crafting a successful initiative or policy within your respective fields? And by all means, feel free to go in whatever order.
Yeah, I'll jump right into this. And I love that I have an opportunity to talk about nonprofit and research and how those two things tie into each other, because as a nonprofit, we are absolutely dependent on quality research in every facet of what we do, on how we serve our clients, our donor need, proving need in our community. And in order for us to effectively fundraise, we have to do quite a bit of research throughout the year. So I'll give you a couple of examples on how we use that research. Every year we prepare what's called an executive summary and an evidence of need statement. And this is how we're providing the metrics and expectations year to year. So our funders know what we're going to be tracking, when and where we're going to be reporting on those things. And it also includes several sources that help us prove the need in the community. So these documents are absolutely vital in a fundraising capacity and to continue to serve the women that we do. Another example I'll quickly give is from an internal perspective. And when we are surveying our staff, our employees, and figuring out what drives them, what that company culture looks like, what are the benefits that are important. And that's really helpful for me as an organizational leader in order to change our policies and to recruit and retain talent.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's the work that gets done in the nonprofit a lot of times filters into the government sector. So I think it's really good to see nonprofit organizations that are really focused on data and analysis and figuring out what their constituents and their customers are in need of, and then that a lot of times we kind of hear from them about what the needs are and can try and supplement their funding or help them out with a program or something along those lines. So in my area, in the state, kind of the way I've looked at this is the research can kind of provide or research in the government sector can provide kind of a supplement to private industries where there are areas that are a bit of like an innovative technology or a new product or something along those lines. One thing that came to mind when this question was kind of shared with me was geothermal energy, which is something I'm really excited about. And the U actually has an amazing partnership with the federal government on a program called FORGE, and I wish I remember what that acronym stands for, but it's a new kind of type of geothermal technology. It's advanced geothermal. There's a big project down in central Utah they're working on, and it's kind of not at the point where it's like commercialized yet. So there's not a ton of private funding flowing into the area, but where government comes in, where we can step in and help shape those programs and identify where the need is, because we're going to need sources of energy like geothermal, and then the U provides a lot of that research out of the Geological Institute, EGI, the Geological Institute out of the U. And so I think there's probably student opportunities there, but they've got some great engineers and other scientists, different types, doing all sorts of cool research. And that's the sort of stuff that might not get done without some government partnerships. And so I think that plays a critical role to me.
So at the municipal level, I have kind of had to find my way through research. At the city, we do share our city attorney who helps with policy, but a lot of times I find that I'm doing the research myself or asking our council director to help us with that. I have found a lot of support in other elected officials at the municipal level and sharing policies that they have passed or things that we are passionate about. What another resource that has been helpful for us at the city level is Utah League of Cities and Towns, which does a lot of research and implements a lot of policies and works with the legislative body at the state and implementing those. And how that affects cities as well. So I am a policy junkie. I love policy, and my role is to change policy and within the city. So that's really important to me. And I find myself doing a lot of research on my own, not necessarily being lobbied by organizations or nonprofits unless I seek them out myself, which is, I find pretty fascinating because a lot of stuff does happen in your own towns. And I think those partnerships should continue and carry on.
Yeah, Rosalba mentioned the League of Cities and Towns, which does a lot of work with the legislature as well, like she mentioned. And I think it's important to recognize those kind of areas where we can collaborate and not just silo things off. Because I mean, we have, I don't know how many state agencies doing all sorts of different interesting work in different areas. And a lot of times there's overlap, or, you know, we could create some better things if we bring people together rather than keep them separate. And there's good examples and bad examples of that. You know, we just merged the State Department of Health and the State Department of Human Services into one, and there was some, there's some good things created there. There's also some potential problems where you have more of a general focus, and maybe some of the people that were receiving services from one of those agencies aren't quite getting the help they need. So it's kind of a balance, but I think that is important to remember.
Wonderful, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, we would love for you to take some time to maybe introduce yourself, your organization, anything else you would want to know, kind of an introduction, and then I'm happy to ask the first question if you want, so you have time to be able to share with the group as well.
Okay, that sounds great. My name is Wynter. I'm the CEO and Executive Director of Utah Black Artists Collective. I'm also a professional poet and a professional drummer. I've been a published poet since the age of 8. I have been playing the drums professionally since about 12 years old. I first started playing at 10. And so, as you can hear, I love the arts a little bit. And so I decided to start a collective of artists. So I have over 50 professional Black artists that are based here in Utah, that I have events for. I partner with different organizations within the state, as well as outside of the state, to just bring a little more visibility, awareness, and continue to create platforms for these artists to be themselves and do what they love, as well as myself, with me being a professional artist. So yeah, I'm just super grateful to be here. Grateful to partner with other organizations. We just did a huge partnership with the Salt Lake City Bees. I'm also the art chair of the Utah Black Chamber. So yeah, I love art. I love business, and I love being in our community and being able to bring our community together as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. So the first question was, like I said, I want to give you an opportunity to share with the group is, can you share an instance where research has been vital in crafting a successful initiative or policy within your respective fields? So maybe within the art community.
Oh, research is, that's kind of what I have to do like every single day. Probably the most recent time would be, like I just said, this recent partnership with the Salt Lake City Bees. I was not familiar. I don't know if you all are familiar with the Occidentals. It was a baseball team that was here in Salt Lake City. One of the first Black baseball teams that was here in Salt Lake City. But I had to do a lot of research on, of course, to help tell their story, to help bring awareness, and then create art around that. We did programming, so pre-show and throughout the game of being able to just give some facts of history about the Occidentals and a little bit about baseball, which integrated the history of what Utah is because the team started here. So it's always based in research. That's always something that helps what I do, as well as, like I said, I'm a professional poet. So I write poems about specific organizations or subjects, if you will, and that takes a lot of research for me to really be able to hone in on what that subject or person or event may be.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, research across the board is, I think, no matter what field you're in, is that foundation to be able to get funding, to get awareness. There's so many things. So wonderful. Thank you. Okay. We'll move on to the next question. And the next question is for all panelists. And again, feel free to popcorn whoever wants to dive in. So obviously, we've got a wonderful group of students here, and then we also have students virtually as well, since we're hybrid. So for students aspiring to build careers in government, nonprofit, the arts industry, the creative industries, how can they use their research skills to stand out and make meaningful contributions?
I'll take an easy out here.
Go ahead.
My perspective, I'm a humanities, graduate from my undergrad work. I did the writing and rhetoric studies program here at the U. And so I would say communicating and understanding how to communicate research is huge. That's a skill that's never going to go. I wrote down something about AI related to another question that was on this thing. No matter what happens, we're going to need people that can communicate, whether it's via writing or public speaking or, art and music and all those things. We're going to need people that get that and can take research and connect with people's lives, especially in the government sector. It's all about, how does research, the data and all that stuff we're doing help people, and a lot of nonprofits too are in that space as well. So figuring out how to communicate, I think that's huge to me, and build relationships and figure out how to connect things together. That's always going to be a skill that is valuable, regardless of kind of what the area of research is.
Yeah, I think I'll expand on that, because I too was thinking about the communication piece and how that need is always going to be there. When you think about research, it really does come down to problem solving, right? And the things that we're doing every single day, whether we're researching where we go to dinner or what where we're going to take a trip, or when we're researching job opportunities. So it's all about problem solving and finding a need and putting those pieces together. And then how do we communicate that? In the nonprofit world, the example I always come back to is fundraising, because nonprofits, we have two main jobs, if you will. The first one is to serve the clients that we're tasked to work with and that we have an opportunity to serve. And the second one is to fundraise. And the two go hand in hand, right? We have to prove the need, and then we fundraise for the need, but then we need the funding in order to serve the clients. And so we have to have a wide range of funding sources. It's really crucial. And so from a researcher's perspective, or in our world, a grant writer, to have a wide variety of funding sources so that we can constantly have that stream of income. When I was thinking about what the best grant writers look like, the things that came to mind to me, thoroughly understanding the nonprofit's mission and making sure that it aligns with you personally, right? You've got to have some type of buy-in to what it is that you're researching. Not only would we get bored, but then there's not a part of a why that comes out, and then that's going to be seen in how we communicate. Excellent communication skills, verbally and writing. We have to tell a story. That's what research is, right? It's telling a story, and again, proving that need and understanding that we have to have trustworthy sources. And so having a wide variety of sources when it comes to our research to make sure that it's not just hearsay or one place, and that information can be backed up. So to me, the best grant writers and researchers are the ones that are really good at telling a story.
I didn't have a traditional route in terms of going into this field that I'm in now and the occupation I'm in. And then I graduated from high school and was like, I need to get out of Utah. So I went to film school and photography school and I got a degree in that. And then I came back and did graphic design. I have been working politically for a long time, many years in California and in here in Utah. And I found myself supporting other candidates because that's the best that I can do. At least I thought in myself, right? And that took me on a trajectory of, why don't you run for office? And that conversation opened up and the opportunities opened up that I never thought I could, because my name is Rosalba Dominguez. And as you are told, you have to fit this mold and this box and be this person. And I'm really glad that I had a partner who really supported me in that and really inspired me to do it and have known me since high school. And even in high school, that opportunity gave me an opportunity to try different things, even in the arts, to be in different spaces that you are not seen as the leader, right? And to see how leadership is functioning within those spaces and what type of leader you want to be exactly, because it is important to have all the skills, but it's also important to know how to navigate within those spaces that are not set up for yourself, that were never made and created for people that look like me or my name or anything, and really find allyship within that space, but also find like the strength that you bring into those spaces and the opportunities that you can give into those spaces. And really for me, all of the other stuff kind of comes with it, right? Like I didn't know about land use, but I learned about land use and I went to those courses and I really studied hard into knowing what my role is now, but coming into it, I didn't know any of that. And it's okay. It's okay to not have all the answers when you first step into those roles, but give yourself the opportunity to be in those roles.
My take on it would be, I'd love to give an example of one of my favorite professors. He wrote a book, my professor at Weber State, and it's called To Fill a Need. The biggest question is what is missing. I feel like you can be the greatest researcher that you want to be, but if you don't know the question that you are asking of what is missing, then you're missing a piece. So I agree with what all of these amazing panelists have said, the application, the communication, but what is missing? That was my approach to the nonprofit, to starting our nonprofit, is what was missing. And then I can apply, I can use that application of what is missing and speak to that. That's what has to be different. That's what has to allow you to stand out, is being able to answer that question of what is missing, what need can I fill that is missing. So that's my approach with that.
Wonderful, thank you. I have some follow-up questions for you all, but we'll get through the questions and make sure we have folks so we can utilize our time. But the next question is just for Councilwoman Dominguez and Senator Blouin. So just for our elected officials in the room, how has research influenced local and state level policy making, particularly in addressing community needs and challenges?
Yeah, at the state level, we've seen research all over the place. There's actually a center called the Utah Data Research Center. I think it's a pretty new creation of the state. I could actually apply to jobs there at one point. Not my area of expertise. So they're focusing on taking data from all of our agencies, like I kind of mentioned earlier. So data on housing, on crime, education, economic data, and kind of warehousing that, which I think is great. I think it's important to have a good repository of, it was mentioned, someone mentioned I think you mentioned the need for like really good sources and having, a baseline there. And that's something the state can do if we're doing our jobs well. We have all access to all sorts of things that that are private information and that sort of stuff. And if we can find the right way to create databases and that sort of thing, that drives policy at all levels. That drives policy at the state, You know, when I, as a legislator or any of my colleagues, want to think about a policy on anything, you know, one of the things I'm working on this interim is restorative justice, and that's a criminal justice kind of policy. And so, you know, there's data available from our different public safety agencies that inform about crime and violence and all those sorts of things. And so I have a good place to turn, and lots of good people that are better at doing the actual research than I am, and being able to go to those places and find that data. So that's one thing the state can do, is really just create a good baseline, a good repository, and like I mentioned earlier, kind of share it around and try and give good access to different agencies, the municipalities, you know, our cities and towns and all those things, so that we can all use that data to shape the policies we're thinking about.
One of the things that I have a great relationship with our House representative too, and he shared his data book, which kind of led me to run for office, but it basically tracks down everything within your district. And because municipality is so localized, it's a great resource for me to use, to know who's in my municipality, what's lacking, what's there, and why I am, my inbox is in relation to the, you know, to the folks in my district. I think I probably, along with a few others on the council who are very data driven, but a lot of times I find interesting, we are not given a lot of data in municipality, unless it has to deal with like changing a budget or implementing some rates. But a lot of the things that we do change is like the or that within a code. So that's sometimes to me is like pretty daunting, but like I said, I find myself asking a lot of questions and looking for the data. Each department head does give us the data when they are presenting. So that is also very helpful, and just always asking questions. But like I said, I always refer back to like the House District book and really just kind of make my decisions around that and I spend a lot of time with our city attorneys because of that. So
yeah, I think there's a lot of room for qualitative data as well as quantitative data. Yes. I mean, data and research goes a long ways, but in our positions, I mean, it's kind of a, you know, unique area, but a lot of the decisions get made off of emotions and feelings, and I think that's okay. You know, I think that's really important in a lot of decisions. I don't think you need, you know, a ton of all sorts of data on every decision you make. Yeah, you need to, you know, just do what's right out of your own, you know, that's what we're elected to do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a hard balance to strike sometimes, but I think it is important to remember that like not everything needs to have absolute data behind it. It's important just to do things.
And it definitely, I mean, I think one example I can give is that right now we're facing an increase of taxes within the city. And we came with a 5% tax increase, right? And now we have dropped it down to 3% because of data, because of the population growth that we've had within the city. And that we could have kept it at 5%. But because of that data, we are now reducing it down to 3%, like 3.34 or something. And we have to rely on our staff to give us those data points and ask those questions. And a lot of time it's building the question and knowing how to ask the question, sometimes to prompt them to give us the answers that we need. But I find myself in those moments where it's, okay, this makes more sense versus this. And sometimes the data does help support that as well. So
yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think that's a really good example of, you know, we can be informed by the data to make the decision, but and it can really give us those concrete pieces. But I think I appreciate the point around also like do what is best at the end of the day. Like the data doesn't always have to be what drives the decision every single time, it just informs the decision. Yeah, wonderful, thank you. Okay, this question is specifically for you, Kathryn. And then we'll give one to Wynter Storm, and then I'll have one more for you all, and we'll open it up to the group. So how has research been instrumental in understanding the needs of low-income women? And how do people helping people utilize this information in developing coaching and mentoring programs?
Thank you. I love this question. I came up with 3 pages of things that I wrote down. I could talk about this all day long. So a few different angles that I want to take with my answer on this and give you a little bit of background about people helping people. Like I said, we're celebrating our 30th year this year. And this program was initially started, our founder, she saw a need in our community, specifically with low-income women, single mothers who were trapped in the welfare system, how to work successfully and to reach self-sufficiency. And at the time, we had about 25 to 50 women that we were serving, and with about 35 volunteers. But clearly the need for what we were doing was present, and a lot of research needed to be done, both on a geographic level, the economic level, working with community partners and people in policy and so forth. A lot of research to be able to tell the story that that need was there and that those programs needed to change. And it really started with successful employment. Today, we now serve over 1,000 women that go through this program, and that's done with the help of more than 150 volunteers. So our program is really unique because we're not a government agency. We're entirely privately funded, and that means a few different things. Our reporting is different, the data that we're collecting, our research, and unfortunately, even though we are privately funded and not a government agency, because of nonprofit and the nature of nonprofit, we're very data driven, and that's what funders want to see, right? Who tend to be more philanthropic by nature, corporations and what have you, very data driven on let's prove the need, let's prove the input. And what we're trying to shift is more of the outcomes and bringing that human equation into it so that we don't get totally stuck on the research and the numbers and going, okay, we need to serve 1,000 women every year versus what exactly are those women doing? So every year we conduct a survey with our clients, and about 10 to 50% of them will report. Again, because we're not a government agency, we're really dependent on the relationship that we have with these women. They have to want to report the changes that are happening in their lives, the before, the before, during, and after. So really unique in the relationship piece of what we do. But one time a year, we do a survey to ask them about those outcomes. Have you gotten a job? Have you gotten a promotion? Has your standard of living changed? Has the program had an impact on your life? What other services do you take advantage of? So as we're collecting that feedback, it ties back into the research that we're doing statewide, or just the state of women in the world of work in our state. And that's a whole nother conversation for sure. But we take that feedback and we can apply it to the programs that we offer and the communication. It also helps us in how we're educating our employers. So we're an employment program. These women come to us because they need a job, they need a better job, they need to learn how to increase earning potential. And so our employer partners are a really important piece. As we're collecting this data from our women that we serve, it really gives us some good insight into what gets them back into work, what keeps them in good jobs. And then we can take that information back to employers, and now it changes our messaging with employers on how to recruit, retain, what it takes to get more women in the world of work, whether that's benefits, flexible schedules, a variety of different things. So it's really helping us leverage both sides of the equation, not only from a funder and donor perspective on proving need, but then on the outputs and the outcomes that these women are experiencing. So 2 sides of the equation on that.
Wonderful. And congrats on 30 years.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Yeah.
22,000 women.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Wonderful. All right. Questions for you. How can you kind of mentioned this earlier, so I'm excited to have you kind of build off of this, is how can research and data-driven storytelling, so thinking about that story component, facilitate a meaningful dialogue between the community, government, and businesses?
That's a good question. I like that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What we're doing right now, being in these spaces together, to speak about these things together. I understand the importance of research, but as you all can probably see, like I'm more of the storyteller. I'm more of the what happens with this research? How can I apply this research? So being in community spaces with one another to talk about these things, to hear your all's point of view, you know, with the research and how that applies within the government, and then taking that and applying that with the arts, right? Because that's what the arts is storytelling. When we're applying for these grants to get funding, like you mentioned, storytelling, they want to know why. They want to know how these things are going to be applied. They want to know how the funds are going to be helpful, and we have to tell the story. Yes, the research is a part of that, but I always say this: what is the bigger picture? How is this going to help our community? How is this going to grow our community? How is this going to change several lives? Well, we have to have the conversation.
I'll speak more generally. One of the pushes, I alluded to this earlier, but artificial intelligence is going to change a lot of things. I think, you know, we've seen a lot of disruptive technologies, so-called, over the last few years. You know, there's blockchain and all that stuff. To me, I haven't bought into all that much, but AI, from what I'm seeing, is going to change, you know, the way work is done and research, and, you know, academics happen, and you know, the law happens. I mean, my wife is a lawyer, and she's seen it used for certain things there. I think it's going to evolve. I mean, it's already evolved to a place where even someone like me without a coding background and or anything can use it in some pretty interesting ways. And so I think that's going to open up opportunities. It's going to create problems. So I would, you know, if I were you, I would learn what's going on there. And like I said earlier, there's always going to be a role for people who can communicate and understand where things are headed, and provide context around those things. So the state has some initiatives. I think there's some policies we passed last year. Maybe it's stuff that's happening this interim on AI to create guidelines and stuff. And I don't know what exactly that is going to look like, but definitely interested to see what the state role there is. I just don't know yet. I'm not the most up to speed yet, but I do think that is a technology that really is going to that is taking hold, and it's going to keep blurring the lines in a lot of ways, good and bad.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm in kind of in campaign season, and we've seen it in that area, which has been pretty fascinating, and it's a topic of conversation, especially amongst our younger voters. I've been personally pushing for like a policy person within the council, and I will continue to do that, and just like myself doing more research about policy and really using data to back up some of the policies that I set forth. And I've even written some of the our own policies, which is kind of unheard of that a council member would do.
You don't have a dedicated.
Not for the council.
Wow.
And so, yeah,
Oh,
it is small town thinking.
We have a whole office of legislative research and general counsel of the legislature. That's amazing. They do legal work and research on data, and you know, I don't have to do any of that. So that's I would support that fully. Yeah, it takes a load off.
It's a lot of like back and forth, but over my interim, I will continue to push that and see where that goes, whether I'm on the council or not. Next year, it is something that I'm very passionate in supporting for the future. Yeah.
I love what just happened here, because that's exactly what I was going to speak to. My research is going to shift way more into EDI. Immediately. That's what I wanted to speak about, is having more equity, and hearing you two just speak about how you may have a team for this, and you don't have a team for on every level. We need to have more equity, and so that's what my research is going to go more into. I already work with a lot of organizations to bring more equity, diversity, and inclusion. But even listening to government officials on every level, we need more equity. And so just ensuring that everyone keeps trying to get me into the politics. So that's something that I foresee in my future, because we need more research. We need more people who are willing to come in and do that work, do that research. What is missing? How do I fill this need to make it a more equitable future for not just us, but those who are coming after us, because that's really what it's at. But on every single level, government level, us as organizations, us as nonprofits, that's where I feel like my research is really needed at this time.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you all. Yeah, truly impactful on all areas and things to think about for the future. And the folks in this room are that future. You know, they are those that are going to be out there and making those changes. Wonderful. Well, to wrap us up, I'd love to just ask one final question for you all to kind of wrap up our time here. And it's just one piece of advice that you give folks in the room and on Zoom. If they were to go into the area in your respective fields, you know, what's one piece of advice that you would want to give them? You can maybe even think back to when you were a college student, and you're like, I wish I would have done that, or I wish I would have known that, or I did that and I'm glad I did that. So yeah, so maybe just one little piece of advice or any last little tidbits.
I can speak to that quickly. Everyone get this book. It was life-changing. To Fill a Need was a life-changing book. It really speaks to the humanness with the research, if you will. It has the data behind it, but it brings in that human quality. So I would recommend anyone and everyone to read that book. It's not super long, but it's packed with life-changing examples and moments that really make you take a moment to just think about, how can I impact in this way? How can I fill this need in this way, whatever it may be, whatever field you're going into. So.
Yeah.
I think I think taking a step and being here and all of that is very important. And really, I think for me, if I was your guys' shoes, I would tell myself, like, it's okay that there's going to be bumps in the road and that you can pick yourself back up, because I feel like it took me a long time. I'm now in my 40s, and it took me a while to get here and to really know what I wanted to do when I grow up, right? And I find myself really loving working with people and doing this work, and that it's important, and it's not for everybody either. And that's okay too. And really just understanding that, like, things evolve over time, and a little snippet of you have a little snippet today of what we do and how it looks different for each of us. And I think that's also valuable and important. And
yeah, I only graduated from the U 6 years ago, so a lot can happen in a short amount of time. Yeah, like kind of building off of that, don't be afraid to pivot when, I would say find something you love doing. That's not always super easy, but don't be afraid to hold out when you can, and wait for an opportunity that pops up, or take something that you don't like. I think the workforce has changed a lot in recent years, and most people are not staying with an employer for 10 or 20 years or an entire career. I think a lot of people are moving around every year, a couple of years. It's good to build rapport with folks, but I think don't be afraid to get into something, and if you don't like it, pivot and try something else, especially if you don't find enjoyment out of it. That to me has been really important, and it just makes life a little easier when you are not going to work or whatever you're doing and feeling like it sucks. So
yeah.
don't be afraid to move around, and I think that's more accepted than it used to be in the workplace.
And find the culture that fits you best. I think that's important too. It's okay to find the culture that fits you best.
Yeah, which is a good parlay into what I was going to say, which was a lot longer than 6 years ago for me. So. A lot longer. To get really succinct in what drives you and what gets you out of bed every single morning and what are those things that are important to you. I think that will help drive a lot of your decisions. It will help you remove maybe that unconscious bias when you are doing your research, and whether you're pivoting through different jobs. And like you said, try a lot of different things. There's nothing to say that one industry can't parlay into the next and that you're not going to know everything right now. But there's going to be some common denominators, some common threads. As I look back over my 30+ year career going, oh, there's some common things, even though there's been a lot of diversity in industries and jobs and roles. So to try to figure out as soon as possible, I know that will evolve, but what drives you, what gets you out of bed in the morning, and what those values are. And then you'll find some commonality in the things that you're attracted to.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And you can still do things while you're in college. I'm 31 and in college and doing all this. So.
Internships are amazing.
Yes.
And volunteer and internship. Good way to go try things.
And you know, just a little plug, that's what the Career Success Center is here for, is to help you know, being able to explore, find those things, get those internships, get those job opportunities. So for sure, come check us out. We're over in the Garth building. We can get a quick coaching appointment. And then we can connect you with wonderful people like we have here today. So with that, thank you so much for your time. And if you have some time, maybe just hang out for a little bit for folks that might want to come up. But thank you so much for all being here. And yeah, we're done.
You here, if you're up or a Spurs scholar, please fill out the evaluation.